We often get trees brought to us for repotting, but they don't realize that the superstructure also needs seeing to. This particular juniper has been owned by a lady for more than 30 years, and I can see what has happened. All these branches here have become grossly overgrown, and this is no longer a bonsai. It is virtually a piece of raw material. So this is going to be a challenge to bring it back to shape, and I didn't want to just send it back without doing anything, because sometimes they're afraid to have anything done, but as I said, they don't really look like a bonsai. So this is going to be an absolute challenge for me, because we are going to do something, and at the end of the day, hopefully you will see a completely different tree. I've already pruned 2 maples. Believe it or not, this is what I pruned off. These are about 2-foot long branches that I pruned from the top of this tree. This tree, as it is almost a meter tall, but it was about 1.5 meter or 1.6 meter tall. Same with this one. This had become too big, so I've taken another 60 or 70 centimeter off the top. So sometimes people are afraid to prune. This is what came off the top. So I've done something radical, because a lot of people are afraid to prune, but it really needs to be regrown. This again I would call almost like raw material, and one has to regrow the branches in a situation like this. So, but that is not the object of today's exercise. The exercise today is to deal with this Chinese juniper. It is a Kisu, and I still remember we've been running the nursery for 39 years, and in the late 1980s or the mid 80s, we used to bring these in by the 100. We used to buy them 1 and 200 at a time, and they were only like 30 centimeter tall, but this tree is almost a meter tall. So in the space of over 30 years, I would say it's almost like 35 to 40 years, this juniper has lost its shape. So what I will do is I will clean the bark a little bit, and I'm going to put quite thick wire and simply reshape the branches. So let's look at this juniper. I told you that the lady who brought it in didn't want anything done to it. In fact, I showed you the other 2 maples. So these are the other 2 trees that this person owns, and it was twice this height, and she didn't want it pruned, but we did ask her, we telephoned her and asked her that it should really be pruned, otherwise it's not going to look like a bonsai. I, in fact, would like to take it down to here, but since this is a customer's tree, I don't like to go crazy. Some people can't take that shock. So that also was twice the height, and I've reduced it to this. So this is the minimum that I'm going to do to this. But the juniper is a different case in point. This tree has completely lost its way. As I always remind people, the design of most bonsai is triangular in shape, like that. It's become an inverted triangle, and that is not what you want. So let's begin by showing you the entire process. When trees come in, they usually haven't been worked for 10, 20 or more years, so they need a spruce up. So the first thing we do is to clean all the bark off. Junipers, they have flaky bark, and we begin by removing it with a little knife like that before we get at the bark proper. So just doing that first. I'm doing it first because if I don't do it now, when I come to wiring it, after it's been wired, it'll be very hard to do this operation once it's been wired. So it's better to do it first. So this is the normal procedure for tidying up these trees. And spring is a very good time when you do your repotting. Some people in the south of England leave the repotting of the evergreens still, March or late March. Again, you've got to play it by ear. What works for one person doesn't always work for another person, but it's quite okay to do it now. In fact, I've often done them in the end of January, and that also works. So to just show you, if you come close, the more you brush it, the red color of the juniper comes up. So I don't want to spend the entire video time showing you how to brush the bark, but it's just to reinforce the principles, the sequence of doing things. There are some wire marks here. The other thing you need to do before you do wiring is to remove these little snags. A lot of people never think of doing it, but if you really remove the snags, it makes the wiring simpler. Snags meaning they are little dead twigs, and if they protrude from the branch or trunk, it's very hard to get the wire over it. So if you remove it now, it makes the wiring much simpler. Unless, of course, like that one, people might use it for a little bit of driftwood or gin. But if it's not used for gin, so all these little snags, can you see? These are the things you need to remove before wiring. Very, very basic thing to remember, but not everyone remembers to do it. Please keep giving feedback because I value feedback from my viewers. This is an example of how resilient certain trees are. Although they seem to be neglected, haven't been repotted for more than 15, 20 years, they are still very strong. And as long as they are watered regularly, they should survive. So this is going to be just an exercise in wiring and reshaping. I'm not going to remove much. You will see I will hardly remove any live branch. It is all up to wiring. So let me show you what I have. Also, when it was repotted, I can see that it was in like a round pot and they put in a rectangular pot, but the front is better here because you can see the line better, more curvaceous flowing line. So I'm going to create a triangular shape, the conventional triangle with a flat base rather than an inverted triangle, which this is. So we will pull these down here, like so, to form the base of the triangle. Pull these down. So it's just a case of using heavy wire. So I'm going to get Josh to help me wire. So we will wire these long branches here and there, and then that will be done. Again, even with these heavy branches, we are always using the two branch principle. There is no substitute for the two branch principle. If you try to wire it singly, it makes life more difficult. Not impossible, but it becomes difficult. And keep the wire tight. Keep the wire really tight. I noticed there are more snags. So that one, I think because it's a bit dodgy judging the length of wire, I'm going to wire with the coil and take it to the end. So I will now get Josh to wire. So let me show you what we've been doing. We've been wiring the branches in pairs. So every single branch is going to be wired, and because these branches are quite thick and gangly, we're going to use quite thick wire. I've used 3.5 and 4 mil wire. And when all the branches have been wired, it's simply a question of positioning them in place, and that will be the final end result. So it won't take long, and we'll show you what we will do after this. So every branch has been wired, and I'm simply going to put it in place. If the wire is not strong enough, I will have to probably put a double. Sometimes a double is more effective. I think on that one I may have to put a double, so that's not a big issue. We usually find that if you put a double, it is more effective than a single for some reason. I often hear people say, oh, I don't like to wire, and I've never wired. But although you can make bonsai without wiring, it is difficult. It is difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult. So where you can, I would certainly advocate wiring. I think this is the most critical branch or pair of branches because it forms the base of the triangle, in fact the first two branches of the tree. So it's important to get this one right. So the double certainly has worked. Without the double it would have been more difficult. Remember what I said, the object is to get the base of the triangle, and once the base of the triangle has been established, we have an expression in English says Bob's your uncle, isn't it? Because a lot of people are in foreign countries, they don't understand English expressions. We don't hear it much though, is it?
No.
Bob's your uncle. I wonder who Bob was. Okay, so we need to form the other side of the triangle. So this branch which was going this way, I'm going to bring this way. So with wire you can achieve any effect. That's why wiring is so important. Okay. So again, when you are faced with design problems like this, you've got to figure out in your mind what the solution is and then devise a means for solving that problem. Devise a solution for it. And the solution in this case is simply using thick enough wire to create the shape you want. The Chinese juniper, this is the Kisu variety, they tend to be quite flexible. Certain varieties of juniper, the San Jose for instance, is very brittle, so you can't do the same sort of bending with any type of juniper. They are all different, they all behave differently. double on that one. To make it bend more easily, and then wire these. So you can see already how the shape has been altered quite drastically simply by doing it. We're going to refine it by putting a few more fine pieces of wire to create that shape. So let's look at it again. Even these ones we can wire tight and take it back on itself like that to make it shorter. So I think the shape is much better than before, and we will just refine it a little more. Bearing in mind that I haven't cut any live branch off. Again, I'm always constrained by customers' wishes. I have to respect the customer's wishes, and I don't want to go crazy. So I will just refine it a shade more by tweaking a few more branches. So here we are, simply by putting wire on every single branch and manipulating it into position. That is the end result. And we're going to put it in a round pot, possibly. And we brought a pot to show you. Because the trunk is not that thick, I think it could easily go in this sort of pot. So if you take a view from there, this is the sort of pot I'll put it in. So I'm not going to show you how we do that. I'll do it and then I may take a final shot. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed this transformation. Now, while we're talking about transformations, I will also show you another little project, which is also a transformation. I have a black pine here, and because some of the branches died a bit, I'm going to improve it a little more. So it's got a lot of character. The trunk has enormous character. So what we will do, we will just wire this and this, and by tweaking the wires, we will get a more interesting shape. So we will use maybe this grade should be okay, that grade, and taking it all the way to the, no, I think we take these two and then the other two. Okay.
2 bits of wire.
2 bits of wire, and we will change it. So we're going to wire that branch, and then this one will come up here. These black pines we grew from seed about 15 or 20 years ago. This one we're going to wire. For those of you who are watching my videos from United States, I'm going to be at the MABS event in April, and for those of you who booked my workshops, I would just say that bring all your problem trees that you want to work on, and I will be able to find hopefully a solution for them. So I'm looking forward very much to meeting some of my American friends there. I don't often go to America, but I'm looking forward to this. So what we are talking about is having vision. If you have vision, anything is possible. Give more dynamic movement to the trunk and branches. Many people ask me, how do I see the shape? Honestly, I don't often have a detailed vision of the final outcome. I only have a rough idea, but that is sufficient. The rough idea is sufficient to be able to help me produce the final result. So I always like to go with the flow. And as the tree dictates it, I will go with the flow of the tree. I try not to be too drastic and take too much off. That can come down. So I think that has improved it. It's given it more of a head. This I'm not sure if I need. It might bud back, so I might keep it, so it could do that, although I don't think I need that somehow. So if I don't need it, I will take that off. So it's still got a nice flow and a small drum pot, because this has got some sort of literati character to the tree. This would be a nice pot. It's just come to hand. So we can get it into this pot. Something like that. So that is the sort of image we are going to create. So we pot it in that and then show you the end result.